What is going on, guys? Craig1287 here, bringing you yet another outdoor porch version of my VR Essays series. This is episode 7, I believe, and I just got done literally seconds ago filming one talking about loot boxes and how people have, there's already all these endorphins and your dopamine receptors and everything, everything's going on in all the chemical processes in your body and in your brain that really drive people to love loot boxes and things like that. And at the end, I don't ever have any scripts for any of my videos, really. I might have bullet points, but for these, I don't have any bullet points. And so I'm just kind of talking, and so my brain went to a certain part of violence in video games. And so that's something that the video game industry as a whole has been facing that for years now. It really hit off with things like Mortal Kombat, where the ESRB was created, the Entertainment Software Regulations Board. And then we had things like GTA 3, which really set it off in games being called violent games, being called murder simulators. We had lawyer folk like Jack. I just said his name in that last video, Jack Thompson. Yeah, attorney Jack Thompson. I think he was in Florida. I can't remember exactly. People like him that in every violent case of some person committing a violent act, especially if it involved shooting, it always was video games are the cause. They're murder simulators. And we had things like America's Army when that came out. It's not as well known as it used to be back in the early and mid 2000s. But yeah, America's Army came out, and people called that a murder simulator, as well as propaganda, which quite literally, it was kind of funny in America's Army. No matter what side you were on, you always saw your team as the American side, and the other team was always the terrorist side. So there was this a lot of things about it being propaganda. You always played the good guys, and the good guys were most definitely America. But yeah, so video game industry as a whole for years, for over a decade now, has been facing the whole murder simulator kind of thing. And in the last few years, we've actually started getting out of that trend. Whenever there's a violent act, it takes a little bit longer for some news outlet or some the party, the victim, the family members of the victims. Again, every time this kind of stuff happens, if there's a school shooting or anything like that, I feel so bad for the victims themselves, but also for the family members, the loved ones of the victims. What they must be going through. I cannot relate to that. I've never had a very close family member, somebody that I love, killed in a shooting or anything like that. But I can't fully 100% relate. I don't know if my mindset would go there, but I hope that I would try to be as rational about it and not emotional as possible. But studies have shown, and for me personally, I don't consider myself to be a very violent person in real life. I don't feel the need to go rob someplace after playing GTA, so I don't feel like my true core behavior has changed because of video games. But that's what studies have shown, is that video games they don't change that core behavior of somebody. If you play even an E-rated game, as long as it makes you mad, like if the gameplay itself makes you mad, you get agitated. And that's what studies have shown, is that short-term changes to your general mood can be changed. But it doesn't matter if it's a violent game or non-violent. As long as it's something where you're getting agitated with the game, like whether it's a crappy design or you just keep falling and you're not succeeding in this game, it just gets you kind of mad. Which is going to be the same case for like watching a sports event. If the Craigs are playing the Mugs, and the Mugs are the guys that you're rooting for, but the Craigs keep beating the Mugs, you're gonna just be in a pissy mood. You're gonna be a little agitated, and if somebody went up to you and said something that normally wouldn't set you off, it might set you off in that case. But it's not changing your core behavior. and it's that's why they call these things crimes of passion, because there's certain things that just impact you. It's not you're not actually a murderer, but you catch your lover in bed with another person. It's a crime of passion. So whole kind of discussion that we could go to for video games in general, as to what these studies find. And I'm just getting attacked by this one. It's not even a bee now. It was a bee the last video. So yeah, the psychological effects of video games on people. I mean, it's pretty much leveled off now that video games don't make people violent murderers, and they don't make them terrorists, or they don't make them sociopaths. These people have those traits to them before going into the video games, and that typically those kind of people are just drawn to those kind of video games. But that could be changing soon with VR, because VR it really does convince you that you're there. Whenever I'm playing these games, my mind is getting convinced that I am leaning against this wall, and obviously that being tricked that you're actually that there's actually a wall there for you to lean on in a shooter does not there's not a one-to-one connection between that and, oh, I'm shooting a guy in a VR game, I obviously am a murderer in real life. There's not that, but there's still just that extra level of immersion, of being in that role, of being that avatar. When you see yourself, when things happen to your body in the game, like if something flies through your vision, when that happens in a 2D game, it doesn't faze me at all. But in a 3D game, like you actually like flinch, you'll blink your eyes, and you'll like swat, and I'll hit my mask, not my mask, but the HMD, my Vive or Rift or whatever I'm wearing. I'll smack it because I actually am feeling like that thing is getting to me. So it's like, when there's a wasp, you better stay away from me. And so I'll tell you guys a sort of a story that happens to some of my friends. It's happened to a couple of my friends when they have tried VR out for the very first time, or at least maybe it's their second time trying it, but this time I've let them stay in for 2 hours. And I've had them call me up after they leave my house, and now this has actually had me change the way I handle my friends when they finish VR for the first time, or if they've been in for 2 hours or something like that. So what happened was my friends, they called me up and were like, Craig, I don't know how to describe this, but I've had to pull my car off to the side of the road because I really I don't know how to explain it, but I feel I'm not sure if I'm actually in the car. I'm getting these pulses or just flashes or this sense that I'm still in VR, and that I'm actually just playing some VR racing game, and my hands are not my actual hands, that these are just the VR hands that I'm seeing, and that I'm actually just putting them on a steering wheel, and I'm just getting these little senses that I'm not saying that they were truly confused into their lives, they were going through this existential crisis, am I truly existing right now? They weren't to that level, but they, after I talked to them before, or after that, when I saw them again in person, they just kind of described it as, it was just really weird. I probably could have kept driving safely, but because of it, I didn't want to run the risk, and that's kind of how they were describing it. It wasn't something that was so utterly convincing that they didn't know if they were, but they were just getting a pulse, they would just look at their hand and the way that their hand would move, and it was just there's just something off. When I move it, I don't know, it feels kind of like I'm still seeing my hand in a VR game. And I actually can relate to this a little bit. After they told me about that, I started paying attention whenever I'd be in VR for 2 hours or something like that. And I came out, there was just this little sense of my movement around the room and things like that. And when I'd go to sit down on my chair, just for a milliseconds, if that, something pops into my mind, whoa, whoa, whoa. Make sure that chair is actually there, and this is not just some virtual reality chair. Make sure that actually is there. And so, is that going to impact us when it comes to this whole, people playing violent games? Is there going to be this lingering sense or because it is so much more immersive, because it is so much more convincing, that your mind is really being convinced that the things around you are actually there. The things that you're doing are the things that you are actually doing. Like if I shoot a guy and stab a guy in Call of Duty 20 VR edition, you know, and when I'm knifing a guy, like after I do that so many times, is there going to be a point? I'm not, again, guys, I'm not saying that this is a high likelihood or anywhere close to it. But this is just pure hypothetical, you know, thoughts that just kind of pop into my head. You know, if I pick up a knife in real life when I'm in my kitchen, is there just going to be something that triggers in my brain that then goes into like, I'm holding this knife in my hand, I see myself holding this knife, I see the light reflecting off this knife just the way it did in the VR game, you know, and then I see somebody in the kitchen with me. Am I going to like have not PTSD, but like am I going to have this just sense of I'm still in the game and I need to stab this person? You know, this is such a weird subject matter to talk about, but like, I mean, it's something to think about, because VR is very convincing, and it's only gonna get even more convincing. In the past, whenever I wanted to stab somebody in GTA, you would just hit a button. You know, a prompt pops up on the screen, and you have this UI that pops up that says, you know, X to, or B to execute, or something like that. You know, there's these visual cues that continue to remind you that this is just a game. You have this UI popping up. You just hit a button and your character does it for you. It's done from the third person perspective. But now you're doing it all from, if I want to knife him, I've got to actually like sneak up behind him, you know, put my hand over his mouth and stab him, and like, you know, depends on the way that the developers design the game, how much physics they put into it and how much animation they put into it, and you know, the way that the game is designed. But you know, could I actually do something like that? And if you do that so many times, is that gonna get to you? After your brain has experienced yourself doing these actions so many times, is that like a soldier that is being trained in war to be desensitized, so that when they actually get to a setting of war, that their mind is you know, trained in a way that they're not supposed to second guess? Because if they second guess, you run the risk of their target, you know, turning around and hearing them and screwing up the mission, you know. So they get trained. It's about building up that muscle memory. It's about desensitizing them to not questioning what their orders are, you know. That's how soldiers they're trained. And so, is that going to happen? Is VR actually going to be that last thing that's required to turn video games into actual murder simulators? Again, I doubt it. I doubt it. I think that it still comes down to the person. I think that it's still very much going to be, you know, if you're a normal, sane individual, that it's not, that you're not going to play GTA and things like that. The other thing, though, is that in a lot of those VR things, they don't make good, like, just because you kill someone in Call of Duty or GTA doesn't mean that you're going to be a killer. And an example that a lot of people give is, well, just because I play Gran Turismo or Forza doesn't mean I'm going to be a professional driver. Doesn't mean you can just throw me in some you know, $500,000 racing machine and I'll be able to take corners and drift and things like that, because the physics are still so different, yeah, and things like that. But then again, that's because in that you're just twiddling a little thumbstick and you're just hitting a button, or you're just pushing the buttons. But now in VR, you're taking your body through those motions of actually putting your hands on a steering wheel. Well, right now a lot of VR racing games are just still done from this, but one day, I hope, please, some developer out there, make one where you actually are holding your Vive controllers out there like this, or you can just, you know, get an actual one of those gaming steering wheels that you plug up to your computer. You can always do that. But like when you're actually going to be doing those actions, could you actually then throw me in a car I've never been in, some Ferrari or Lamborghini or some rally vehicle, and I'd actually be able to translate my skills there? I mean, that's why people train in simulators. You know, you train in a flight simulator, and then you can go hop into an actual plane now you can pull those things off. And those are some of the examples that lawyers and people have used, is that people have actually used video games to train in simulators, and then they can actually go into the real world, into an actual car, into an actual plane, and carry out those actions. But again, this comes down to, it's not so much the changes of your muscle memory and being able to do, it's the root changes in your core behavior of who you are as a person and how you would react to situations. But again, VR, because it's like you're really there, that really is you. You know, is that just enough to push someone over the edge and actually take a healthy, well-minded individual who doesn't want to commit violence against people? Is it just enough to desensitize and go beyond the desensitization to where they're actually now becoming that person? Is it enough? I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the studies are. I love reading peer-reviewed studies and things like that, guys. I just love that kind of stuff. Psychology fascinates me. So I cannot wait to see the kinds of studies that come out of looking at the impact of violent VR games on people and how it impacts them. So I cannot wait to see that stuff. But I can also just live it myself. You know, I'm playing these violent VR games right now, and I don't feel any more violent than I have 2 years ago, before I had never even gotten my hands on anything VR related. So yeah, but again, you know, I'm just one man. I can't just do a straw man argument and, well, this is how it is for me, so this is how it is for everybody. You can't do that. So yeah, I can't wait to see these kind of studies. I'm hoping you guys are looking forward to that kind of stuff. You know, maybe you're just here to play video games and you don't really care about societal impacts of the psychological effects of VR on people as a whole, and who cares? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video nonetheless, and yeah, just gonna drink some more lemonade. Yeah, that's good stuff. This is beautiful weather. I hope the audio in these VR essays outside have been coming through, because I've been talking a lot. Yeah. But it's not a total loss if this doesn't work. At least I got to sit out here and enjoy this lovely weather, so yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 7, I think, of this VR essay. Be on the lookout for more, and have a good one. Ta-ta.